Well, welcome everyone. Happy Tuesday, May. We have the honor and privilege at Cadre to introduce these two incredible coaches, and I will give you an introduction to them, and then we will open this up for our panel on money mindsets. Starting up with my top left corner, not sure where she's on your screen, but Dr. Barb Provost, give us a wave. She is a founder of a company called Purse Strings, and she is on a mission to ensure that all women live financially fearless life full of choices. And Eric, give us a wave, Eric. He has a finance degree with extra concentration in accounting and is a certified coach through Ramsey Solutions. He has lived with what he coaches and does so with a deep passion in the heart of a teacher. He believes that financial stress can have a significantly negative effect on mental health and relationships. And Eric seeks to help alleviate that stress and give hope that things can and will get better. So thank you two for both being on today. And I'll just start off with the first question that I had received, and then we'll just keep going with questions and we'll just keep opening this up. Actually, before we start there, before we start with a question, I want you guys to think, if you had to give one piece of advice to someone about finances, what would it be? And we can maybe use that at the end of the webinar, so you can have some time to think about it, because I didn't prep you for that.
It's okay.
For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Carrie Mankey, Director of Coaching at Cadre. So I have the pleasure of working with these individuals. So the first question we're going to ask is, as I start to look at making a budget, if I've never lived by budget, should I have no money left over at the end of the month? Meaning, like, should I have allocated like money for fun and spent it? Or like, how do I make sure that like at the end of the month, I did it right?
You or me, Barb?
I can start on that. So a budget is a game plan, and it has to be flexible, right? It's guidelines. Anything can come up. I'm not big on the, budget every single dollar. There's a methodology around that. Some people are. It works. I always say, when you're thinking about your budget, you need to think about the big buckets, right? So you need to pay yourself first. You need to make sure you have your, Maslow's hierarchy of needs covered. So the most foundational components, like your housing and your food and your clothing and things like that. I absolutely think you need to budget in your fun. Budget seems to be such a constraining word because people think they're in a very small box when they're thinking about budgeting. But you really need to look at what's the money that's coming in and what are your expenses going out. And you definitely need to make sure you're planning for your time for your enjoyment, to treat yourself and things like that. But you need to also make sure that you have your other priorities in order, like your housing, your food, your clothing, and also saving for an emergency fund, because it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. Go ahead, Eric.
I don't really feel like I could say anymore. No, that Barb, you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly it. I love that you said, it's not a constraint. I almost feel like a budget is what gives you the freedom to do things with your money. It allows you to say, okay, I can spend this money here, that money here. So Carrie, to answer your question about the zero-based budget, I usually coach people, let's do a zero-based budget, but absolutely throw your fun or blow money in there. If you're a couple, I always try to encourage a couple or married people to combine your finances, agree on things. It gets rid of money fights, and throw in that play money. Hey, your play money is your play money. It doesn't matter. There's no answering to this. If it's $100 a month, $200 a month, $20 a month, if you're really struggling, whatever, you do what you want with it, and it's all good. I also agree the whole, the four walls thing. It's you want to take care of your food, number one, your utilities, number two, your housing, number three, and transportation, number four. Especially people with variable incomes, or people that don't have a fixed income coming in every month, people who are paid on commission. You got to list those priorities in order, and I always say those are kind of the first four priorities, especially if you have irregular income coming in. But yeah, the zero base thing, I always go with zero base, but fund money's included in there. Spend that fund money however you choose. If there's some left over, great, throw it towards whatever, but also making sure if you don't have a fully funded emergency fund, making sure money's going to that. Debt, paying off debt is number one, get rid of that. But you got to be able to breathe and smile and do some fun things.
Yeah. And I'll add one more thing, Eric. I know you'll agree with this. Sometimes in our budget, we forget that there are things that are not a monthly expense. Every 6 months you have auto, annually you might have a life insurance bill. And oftentimes we forget about those and we're like, eek, right?
Yes.
When they come up, you're like, oh no, I totally forgot about this. So it's really important to look at either what those 6-month or annual expenses are and budget out a monthly amount that you set aside for that. Or, in some way know that your savings so that that doesn't come up as an unexpected, or even things like weddings, right? Gifts for children's birthdays. There's always the unexpected. So that's why you need to make sure you have kind of a cushion in there for those things that you forget about.
100%. If those that celebrate Christmas, it comes on the same day every year. There's no surprise there. We know December 25th, it's coming. So, budgeting a little bit of money every paycheck for Christmas, or, your taxes, those are, property taxes are going to come up once or twice a year, depending on how they're paid, making sure you're throwing that money in a little sinking fund set aside. And it does. I mean, and Barb, I'm sure you've seen this a million times. That budget takes a little while to get used to it. Everybody thinks, well, I tried budgeting, it didn't work.
Right.
Tried it once. At least in my experience, I've seen it takes about 90 days for most people, 3 full month budgets to really get the hang of it. And once they get the hang of it, it's a breeze. I mean, it's like, okay, we got this, we know this and this, but not giving up on a budget. If you give up too quick, it's over with. If you stick with it, you're good. And I always, I'm certified through Ramsey Solutions. One of my favorite sayings is, you tell your money where to go before you wonder where it went.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're in charge.
Yes. People that like to be in control, your budget, you got control. And that's a great feeling.
This is such valuable advice. You guys are such a wealth of knowledge in this. We have a follow-up question on this from Katie in the chat saying that my husband is a giver. He loves to pay for everyone's tabs, dinners with couples, etc. It's happening several times a week, golf, happy hour, dinner. And when I bring up a budget, he kind of scoffs at that. How can I support his giving heart yet keep him restrained?
What a nice guy.
I know.
Wow, I'm going to go golfing and out to eat.
I like that guy.
Yeah. First of all, I think before you go out, I think you need to have conversations with your spouse, right? Because you need to be in agreement about where your money's going. It's not a bad thing to treat. Maybe you treat, once a month or something. Sometimes I've seen this where people kind of get nervous and they think, oh, I'll never mind. I'll just pay for everybody, like they don't know how to accept that. No, let's all throw in our cards, and you're not responsible for everyone's meal, everyone's happiness, everyone's everything. They're all adults at the table. They can certainly afford to pay for their own. And there's nothing that says you are responsible. So there's nothing wrong with treating, but I think it's trying the action of sitting back a little bit and just pulling your card out for yourself.
100%. I love that. And I think there's a forgotten word in today's world that people don't like to say and people don't like to hear, but it's one of the most adult words, and it's the shortest sentence in the English language, and it's no. Just being able to say no in a nice, confident way, that's huge. I mean, no, you know what? I'll get the next round or maybe next time or whatever, but just being able to say no to certain things is huge. But I mean, I love a giving heart too. That I think it's great. I encourage people to, if, whether it's religious things, or whether it's charities, whatever, I encourage people to absolutely have money for giving. But if it's, hey, I'll get this whole round of golf, or I'll get everybody's round at the 19th hole after the round of golf, it gets expensive fast. And Barb, I'm sure you've seen, working with people's budgets. One of the things that I usually do is for somebody that I'll do a complimentary consultation to see if I'll be able to work well with them and they'll be able to work well with me. One of the things when it gets to the point of talking about cost, if they say, well, I don't have any money, how can I afford your coaching fee? I almost always say, if I can't find the coaching fee in your budget, I'll do it for free. And 99.99% of the time, you can find that coaching fee in the restaurant's budget, how much they're spending on restaurants every month. It's huge. So yeah, it's I've yet to have to coach for free because it's always in that restaurant column.
Yeah, agree.
Great
Thanks, you
advice.
guys.
Yeah.
I'll let him know. And Eric knows my husband.
Very well.
Yeah.
And I know he's one of the greatest people in the world, and he's got a giving heart. It's tough. I get it.
Thanks, you guys.
Sure.
Great question, Katie, especially since sometimes when we think about, spending money and budgeting, it can always be negative, but, really this is a positive giving thing that your husband does, but it can cause some disagreements and where the money should be allocated in relationships. That's actually one of the questions I have is, how do you bring your kind of backgrounds and how you spend versus save versus budget into a marriage? Like, where do you begin with that conversation of, we both have been doing this our own way for a while? How do we get on the same page?
You want to go first, Eric?
Sure. So one of the things that I kind of noticed is, in most relationships, there's always a kind of a more free spender, and there's a kind of saver or more frugal person in general, most relationships. So kind of sitting down and just saying, hey, I love you, and this is something that is very important to me, and I'd like it to be important to you, because let's face it, most divorces start with financial problems. It's one of the biggest causes of divorce, and I want us to be on the same page. I'm willing to sacrifice on certain things or give in on certain things. I would ask that you give in on certain things. If there's a really touchy issue, coming to it with a really open heart and just saying, hey, this is really weighing on me, and this is something that I really would love to chat with you about. Do you have time to sit down and talk about it? But just getting on that same page, especially when most people in a relationship are different, they do things different financially, and understanding that if you're the one coming to the table asking to sit down and chat about this stuff, understanding that you're going to kind of have to give in too a little bit. It's a give and take. It's a compromise. I mean, when you sign marriage papers, it's hey, we're doing this as a partnership, which means both people get a vote, and nobody's opinion is more important than the other one. So just kind of going into it with that heart of, I love this person, kindness matters, and just knowing that you're on the same team no matter what, and you want to agree to things, which also means you're going to have to kind of give in on certain things that maybe are weird to you, but that's okay. If I couldn't be married to myself, I know that. So no chance. I would not like myself at all. I think that's why we're typically placed with somebody that has different ideas and views on things. So
interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would add, before you get married, you're in a dating, relationship or some kind of relationship where that's leading. I think that's when you really need to start observing how they manage their money, and then starting to have those conversations, because the way people manage their money are deeply ingrained with who they are, right? So that's not going to change overnight. So if you're with somebody who's like all over the place with their money, it's kind of a red flag. I mean, if you're not that type of person, you have to really be clear about what it is. Now, money's just a tool, right? And I think the fault is, so many of us have not learned how to use this tool. Think about it. You had to go to driving school and take lessons and get behind the wheel and pass a test before you could drive. Nobody told you anything about money. So people don't know what it's all about, how to use it, what it's, how to best leverage it. And I think when you're talking about money, you have to really think about what are our shared goals, because it's all enmeshed with, do we want to live in a house? Do we want to live in a condo? Do we want to live in Florida? Do we want to live in Chicago? I mean, there's 1,000 million decisions you're going to make together as a couple, and money is the foundation to all of that. So money can be an emotional topic for many people. Oftentimes there are women that don't want to talk about it at all. In my experience, they just don't want to talk about it. And, it's something you really have to unpack to have a healthy relationship around money. And it's not, you just do that and I'll do this. What I've seen and learned, and the reason I created Purse Strings is because it's a partnership. Like Eric so beautifully said, it's an agreed upon partnership. And the money part has to be an almost everyday conversation. Just like you would talk about who's taking out the dog. Did you go to the grocery store? This bill's coming in or that bill's coming in. Do we want to budget for this or that, And one of the questions I often ask my friends, it's just fun at a conversation starter at a dinner party, like, to what degree, what amount of money do you feel like you could spend without really checking in with your spouse? Because I was sitting across from the table from a couple, and he spent $20,000 on a phone call at the table without even turning to his wife and asking her anything. And I was shocked by that. I'm like, wait, you just made a $20,000 decision and you never even asked your wife about it? And, she's like, well, he's the earner and I'm the stay-at-home mom. I'm like, no way. That's your money. You have a say in that decision. And so it was just interesting. They were okay with that. I've seen too many people wind up in the poorhouse because that's the way they manage their money.
Barb, you said that he's the earner and she stays home, and that hits close to home for me because my wife stayed home with our kids for almost their entire childhood, and there was never a time I said my money, or my thought was, this woman is raising these kids, which is the most underpaid job in the world, should be one of the most high paid jobs in the world. She's earning every bit of the income that is in all of our accounts, period. And I think, a married couple understanding that is huge. It's huge. Not so-and-so is the earner. And so, no, you're in a partnership. You agree till death do us part. You agree everything is yours, saying our money or our retirement fund or our savings account, no, my savings account, my retirement. So I love that you brought that up. And you said a couple of things. The deeply ingrained, finance is deeply ingrained, and also you mentioned it can be very emotional. That is so true. It's almost on a level of, if you're trying to talk to people just in a casual setting, it's almost one of those subjects that you try to avoid a little bit, like religion or politics, because people can be so passionate and it hits them so hard. If you say something that you agree with financially, that other person is like, no, that's not how it's done. It can cause arguments. So it's a very personal, like you said, emotional thing. And I love that you brought those words into it, because that's so true. Yeah.
It's very emotional. And like you said, it's the number one reason people split up. And that's why you need to talk about money often. And both of you need to know exactly where the money is and where the flow, what money's coming in, what money's going out. I unfortunately was facilitating a session the other day where this woman said, I was married to my high school sweetheart for 30 years. He was a CPA. He managed the money. And then one day he left me. He left me with 3 children, and $350,000 worth of debt that she had no idea about. $1,500 in the bank and a $1,500 mortgage payment due. And I'm telling you, I hear these stories a lot. And it's because she just didn't know. She trusted him. She's like, I knew this. He's my childhood sweetheart. But something was going on, gambling or something. I mean, I didn't delve into it. It wasn't my business, but she shared that. And I hear that the average age of a widow is 59. You know, there's a lot that goes on in life that women just need to be in the know about.
Yes. And the fact that you work not solely with women, but focused on women, I think that's huge. That is, I commend you for that. That's amazing. That's so good that you do that, because exactly what you're saying happens so often, where the female spouse just doesn't know what's going on. And it's so important for both spouses to know everything about the finances. It avoids money fights. And if the male spouse passes on early, which, you know, typically that's how it happens, the surviving spouse knows what to do. They know where to go for all the information, passwords. Either they know the passwords or they know the password locker where everything's at for all the financial accounts. It's so important. Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. And I think also, like, your wife, you know, raised children, beautiful way to spend her, you know, her years of enjoyment, really, and hard work for sure. And, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No.
I always say make sure there's a plan for that as well, because when women do leave the workforce, they're leaving behind benefits, contributions to their retirement. They're losing contributions to their Social Security, right? And when you add that up, it's upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars that they are leaving behind, right? So there are ways to plan for retirement for her as a couple navigates that and makes that decision through spousal IRAs and things like that. So it's important, again, the game plan on your money plan. That's why it's so important to have a designated plan and to know where the money's going, how it's being used, how it's being invested, so that she gets enough of her own retirement as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a really good point too, is, you know, making sure, I mean, let's face it, we know a lot of marriages do end in divorce, and things are going to be split 50-50 anyways, if that happens. You don't want that to happen, but so why not on all the retirement accounts, all of the bank accounts, make sure both spouses are on it. Retirement accounts, like our retirement is all, you know, from the companies I've worked for, but my wife is 100% beneficiary on every single retirement account that we have. And then secondary beneficiaries are our two kids at 50-50. But so it's not like you're saying, well, if I get divorced, then I want my money. You're not getting it anyways. You're splitting that half and half. So just put your spouse on it. So, you know, and I don't like saying the D word anyways, but I'm just saying, you know, it's a reality. So we have to face it that it does happen, but things are going to be split anyways. So just put the spouse on there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, remember, in those retirement accounts, even if she's the beneficiary, that's only if you die.
True. Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you get divorced, more than likely,
hopefully she'll get half. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually the way I've seen it. Unless you got a prenup, which I don't like prenups.
I'm all for prenups.
Oh yeah, hey, that's cool. Hey, all good.
You know, it's just different philosophies, but yeah, prenup, postnup, whatever. Just so that women are covered, you know, looking at from a very female perspective. And and right, power of attorneys and a will. So I don't know, Carrie, if we're going down a different road here.
I wanted to
it's a great
pull you guys back
hole.
a little bit and focus a little bit on, let's say, the person who isn't married. You know, maybe they are, you know, in their 30s, 40s, they're not married yet. Maybe they're in their 20s still. And they're saying, okay, I'm, you know, figuring out how to budget and figuring out how to pay off some of this credit card debt. How do I do a self-inventory so that I kind of know what I'm bringing into a relationship? like you were saying that it's so deeply ingrained into who we are, about how we spend, save, our concepts about money, our mindsets about money. How do I do a self inventory so that I know what I'm kind of bringing to a relationship if I choose to enter one then?
I can take that. So I think there's two things that are parallel. I think you can definitely do kind of like a net worth statement that says kind of what's everything you owe and everything you own to really see financially where you're at. You can even do a cash flow for what's the money that's coming in every month and what's the money that's going out. So you know what your expenses are. And those are two good kind of benchmarks on where you are financially. And then you look at it around where are you kind of emotionally with your money, right? So if your money shows you, you have a ton of student loan debt, you have a ton of credit card debt, you have more debt than you have assets, it shows that maybe you need to recalculate some of this so that you have a plan in place. No judgment, there are a lot of people with a lot of student loan debt these days, and that's a whole nother scenarios. But if you're going to be married or someone's coming in with a lot of student loan debt, a lot of debt, that's something that's a red flag that needs to be addressed. Why is all this debt been accumulated? So financially, you can look at the numbers. And then emotionally, it's, just having conversations like, what does money mean to you? Like, what's important to you around your money goals? If you wanted to go to Florida in 6 months, how would you do that? What would be your plan to do that? Oh, I'd throw it on a credit card, or will I take so much money each month out of my paycheck and put it in a savings account? I mean, what's the approach? What do you need to learn about money? Some people don't know strategies to put in place. They need to learn. How would I, if I don't want to put it on a credit card debt, then what is the best way for me to plan for a vacation? No judgment. Let's talk about different ways you can create strategies to do that. So, what do you know about investments? What's important to you? Are you contributing to any investments? Why not? So it's kind of like really discerning where are you in your kind of financial numbers, emotions, and knowledge.
Great answer. How about you, Eric?
I don't know if I could add anything to that. As Barb started talking, and Barb, do you like to go by Dr. Barb, or is Barb?
No, Barb is fine.
Okay, I'm sorry. As you started talking, I kind of wrote down debt, net worth. I wrote how you feel when thinking about money, and you kind of touched on all of those. I feel like if you really try to dig deep into your psyche, ask yourself, how do I feel when I think about money? Do I feel weight on my chest or my shoulders, or do I feel, okay, I'm in a good position? I've got limited debt or no debt. I've got a solid emergency savings, kind of socking away some for retirement, that sort of thing. But you also have to be a little bit careful of, do you feel good about money because you just don't think about it? You just spend. So taking that self inventory of, am I a spender? And if so, how healthy are my finances? Is my net worth positive? Is it going in the right direction? What's my debt load? So it's a number of factors, just like Barb mentioned, that and she hit on every single one of them. I mean, I can't really add anything to it. I was writing things down. I'm like, oh, she said that. She said that. She said that. All right, nailed it.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. That's really helpful. It's a question a lot of people ask me in what the coaching that I do, even though it's not financial coaching. And a follow-up question for that, let's say I am single and I've got credit card debt from 10 years ago that's just sitting there. I haven't touched it. I haven't paid it off. I'm making decent money now. Where do I begin?
So I'll jump on this one. The follow-up question I would have is not paying on it or paying the minimum payments on it. What's the person doing?
I don't know.
Okay, so
literally a question somebody asked when I posed,
okay, I mean,
what kind of financial questions do you have? Maybe address both ways.
So I would guess after 10 years, if they weren't paying anything on it, there'd be a lot of phone calls coming their way. So I'm going to assume that they're probably, the debt's sitting there and they're just kind of making minimum payments on it. so the first thing in the way that I would do it if I woke up in their shoes is I would say, okay, I need to stop accumulating debt. No more. I'm done accumulating debt. So first, the behavior change has to happen, because to try and tackle your debt without changing the behavior that got you there in the first place, it's like running on a treadmill. You're just you're in the same place as you were. So telling yourself no more, never again, I'm sick of this, I'm not going to be in debt anymore, and then saying, okay, now I'm going to put together a plan. And that actually, the video that I submitted kind of had to do with two really tried and true methods of paying that debt down. You mentioned how to tackle it. So there's two really good methods. One is the debt avalanche, and then the other is the debt snowball. I think they're both great. Debt avalanche is you list all of your debts, highest interest rate to lowest interest rate, and you just throw every bit of extra money you have towards that highest interest rate while making the minimum payments on the rest. Once that top interest rate is gone, then hit the next one. The other one is debt snowball, which I've just found better success with because it builds small wins fast. And the psychological and behavioral component of money is so important that when you list, as the debt snowball says, smallest debt balance wise to largest debt balance wise, and you knock off that first little debt, maybe it's $100 or $1,500, whatever, that thing gets knocked off. You check it off on that debt list, and it's like, oh, I got one. I'm going to go get the next one. You build this momentum and this feeling of positivity, like, hey, I can do this. It really, and that's why they call it the debt snowball. It just picks up steam. So to tackle the debt, I would say both of those methods are great. I just prefer to coach on the debt snowball because I think behaviorally, those quick wins are so important when you're trying to tackle it.
Yeah, excellent. I've read a lot of these articles on people who said, oh, we paid off $40,000 in debt in a year and things like that. And so I really dug in, what did these people really do it and how did they do it? And people can do it. And here's what they do. They really, really, really pull back on spending anything, and they minimize what their expenses are. So they might live in a 2-bedroom apartment. They might move to a 1-bedroom apartment. They might sell an extra car. They might look at any extra piece of expense or cost that they have and just say, we're dialing all that back, and whatever we're saving, we're putting it towards that debt. But they make like a conscious effort in a small period of time to really go big on paying off the debt. So let's say you had like $20,000 on a credit card and you're like, I'm going to get this paid off this year if it kills me. What if you just took a side hustle? You did Uber Eats, or you did waitressing, or you did something like that and said, any money I make here, it's going in the bank so I can get paid right to that, credit card debt. And they make it kind of like a game. It's like, anything extra, anything I earn with this, and I'm going to do this for 6 months or a year, it's just going to be paid off. I'm going to be debt free in a year. And it's really doable if you really focus and you put some muscle behind it. And I don't know, I mean, when I was younger, I always worked 2 jobs. I always worked during the day and I waitressed at night for a long time because, I was putting myself through school, and I had debt like that, and that's how I got through and paid off debt. So it is doable. I think you just need to get focused and put a game plan. The other thing is you might want to look at the interest rate on that credit card and see if you can transfer it to a zero balance credit card. And even if you have to make a payment to do that, at least it's zero balance. They give you 12 or 15 months to do it and make that your game plan. This is what I'm doing. Get an accountability partner. I used to come home from my waitressing job, give all my cash tips to my roommate. She would take all that money, and then at the end of the month, I'd pay bills. So I had an accountability partner, and that helps too.
Love it.
That's huge. And the jobs, Barb, that's great. One of the things that's been said a million times, there's a great place to go when you need money, work.
Yeah.
I mean,
go to work.
The extra job, the side hustle, it's huge. I mean, and the other thing to remember is, you're thinking, oh, I got to pay all this debt off. It's temporary. Once it's gone, yeah, okay, you can get rid of that side hustle if you want. Just a little bit of temporary sacrifice to get you on good footing while making that behavior change, saying, I'm not going back into debt. I'm done with it.
Mhm.
It's huge. If you can make a temporary, 12 to 24 month sacrifice, the sky's the limit after that. You free up so much of your income without debt payments.
Yeah.
This is such great advice. Oh my gosh. I know our listeners are going to love all of these topics we've covered, but to wrap it up, I don't think we have any other questions from the audience. I wanted to hear that one piece of advice. If you could tell someone one thing that would just set them up for success or help put them on the right track to be just financially fearless, as Barb likes to call it, what would that one piece of advice be?
I would say learn about money. So many of us did not learn financial literacy, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Find your community, like we have at Purse Strings, that you can ask questions, get the answers, set yourself up, start small, know what's coming out of your paycheck, know what you're earning, know what your income is, know what your bills are. Just start working through. You're going to be so empowered by that. Because like we said at the beginning, right, Eric, you're in charge now, right? This is your money. You're in charge now. Don't let it drive you. You drive it. So know what's coming in, know what's going out, learn a little bit more. Maybe you want to learn about investing. Make sure you have your emergency fund. And all that learning and all those good habits are just going to set you up for a great financial future.
Great advice.
Yep. And I would say the one piece of advice is start budgeting early. Learn to budget early and always do it, because when you're telling your money where to go, you're not thinking, oh, where did it go? You know where it's going. So tell your money where to go before you wonder where it went. And it allows you. There was a psychology study done years ago, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but it had to do with kids on a playground. And these kids were all frolicking, playing around, and okay, so it started with there was like no fence around this playground, and the kids didn't know what to do. They all kind of like huddled. They didn't really know what to do. But when they put a fence around the playground, the kids kind of frolicked everywhere. That's how the story went. And basically what it was trying to say is, when given boundaries, you feel freedom to play within those boundaries. And that to me is what a budget is. It's boundaries, and I got all the freedom I want inside of those boundaries. The budget's fluid. If you spend a little too much in one category, hey, pull it from the other one. It's not dead set. You don't have to stick with it. Just stick with the zero balance at the bottom and you're good. So a budget is freedom, in my opinion. So yeah, the one piece of advice, start budgeting early. And I probably butchered that psychology study, but I hope you got the gist of what it was. It was pretty interesting, though. I just probably said it wrong.
No, I get the concept. That's beautiful. Okay. It's true. It gives you breathing room, right? Because now you know what your boundaries are.
Mm-hmm. This was just such incredible wealth of information. No pun intended. I appreciate you guys so much. That this is just really what our audiences need to hear. And I can think of so many people off the top of my head that would watch this replay and get something from it, get multiple things from it. So thank you so much. Amy says thank you in the chat. We just really appreciate your time today and for just contributing your time to Cadre today for this webinar. So thank you both so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.